As we near the election, our state Capitol Bureau Chief Vanessa Kelson is speaking with significant minority voter communities across the state about the most important issues for them this election.
For the second part of Battleground Wisconsin, I spoke with some of the state's Polish voters who historically have a knack for picking the winner.
I'm 100% Polish.
100%, pretty much.
Wisconsin is home to one of the largest Polish American populations in the country.
And we remember stories of whether it's our parents, our grandparents, of our great-grandparents, talking about how they came to this country. It was to flee the Soviet regime, because the Soviets took everything, and they believed in democracy.
For the last 20 years, Polish voters overall have picked the winner of every single presidential election, according to survey data from the Piast Institute, a national research center focused on Polish Americans.
Polish Americans, they don't care if you're Democrat or a Republican. They're just hardworking folks that want someone who's going to get things done.
More than 30% of Polish voters identify as independent, according to Piast.
Well, I tend to vote my conscience on each election, and that can go either way. It's, which candidate is the best fit at the time.
This time, Elaine Ritzka, a retired worker at the now-closed National Hardware in Milwaukee, is voting for Harris.
She came from a working-class family and a single mother.
At Kochanski's Concerta Beer Hall in Milwaukee, these Polish voters make it clear they are no monolith.
I will not give up my constitutional rights. Freedom of speech, Second Amendment, First Amendment. It's very important to me, and I know a lot of people want to take that away.
What are some of the biggest issues for you this election? The economy, border, healthcare?
Ukraine. For
John Krukowski, Ukraine's sovereignty is top of mind.
I want it to stay Ukraine, so Poland can stay Poland.
Krukowski pointing to Bob Woodward's new book, reporting that Trump had as many as 7 private phone calls with Russia's President Vladimir Putin after leaving office.
As a private citizen, he's got no business calling Putin, unless they're buds.
The former president has denied Woodward's reporting, telling ABC News Woodward is a bad storyteller and has, quote, lost his marbles. As for why Polish voters are so accurate at picking the winner,
being one of the largest groups of independent voters, they will vote for the person, not the party.
Both the Harris and Trump campaigns are making appeals to Polish voters, with Harris during the presidential debate telling Polish voters that Trump would give up Ukraine to Putin. And although ultimately canceled, Trump scheduled a visit last month with the Polish president in Pennsylvania at a Polish American Catholic shrine. In Madison, Vanessa Kelson.
And that is the second part in our series Battleground Wisconsin, where we are hearing from different deciders about some of the biggest issues between now and Election Day.